We were just talking with Philip Hammond, and he noted that the U.S. trade sanctions that were imposed yesterday have changed the atmosphere here. Can you describe what that atmosphere is like?
I think that we should have been united during that G7 to tackle the global challenges of the world. I'm thinking, of course, of growth, employment, development. And instead of that, we will be divided. It will not be a G7. It will be a G6 plus 1. The United States have decided to raise the tariffs on steel and aluminium, and as I've explained with the French President Emmanuel Macron, that decision is unjustified, unjustifiable, and it is dangerous. Dangerous for growth, dangerous for the economic development all over the world, and dangerous for our jobs in the EU.
Do you think this is the beginning of a trade war?
We have to avoid that. A trade war is not in the interest of Europe, not in the interest of the United States. So I think that we should use that G7 to all discuss together, the 6 states plus the United States, to try to find a way out. We have to overcome those difficulties. But it is up to the American administration to make the first step and to find that way out. They have decided to put sanctions on Iran. They have decided to raise the tariffs on steel and aluminium when the problem comes from China and does not come from the EU. So it is up to the American administration to find the solution.
What is wrong with the American argument that a strong steel industry is important for a strong economy, which is important to national defense?
A strong steel industry is of the utmost importance for the United States. It is of the utmost importance for the EU, but the problem does not come from the EU. The overcapacities on steel and aluminium comes from China. So let's discuss about the best way of tackling that issue of overcapacities on steel and aluminium from China. But the idea of putting sanctions or raising the tariffs for the EU is something we cannot understand. So let's try to find a solution all together, but it is up now to the United States to give to the EU a full and permanent exemption on tariffs so that we can really renew the discussion and the dialogue between the US and the EU.
And that is your precondition for further negotiations?
Of course, we won't negotiate under pressure. We will never accept to negotiate under pressure.
The President claims that the U.S. is more respected around the world than it ever has been. What do you think of that view?
I don't share that view. We are close allies to the United States. And President Macron has clearly shown that we were on the side of the United States, including on key strategic questions like Syria. But the single response that we have from that behavior is an aggressive behavior from the Trump administration. I'm not sure that during that G7 we will have the United States more respected by the 6 other member states of the G7. I'm afraid that we run the risk of having tensions that we should have avoided by finding other solutions to that concern of the overcapacities on steel and aluminium.
Would you be willing to join with the Trump administration in actions against China on intellectual property and some of its violations of WTO rules, or has this poisoned the well and you might do something on your own?
Of course. And we have made very clear with Emmanuel Macron during the state visit in Washington that we were keen on working with the United States on those key issues. Of course, the protection of intellectual property is for us of utmost importance, and we have to think about that question with our American friends. We are open to discuss with our American friends on the question of access to public procurement, because we can no longer accept to have the Chinese company having access to the public procurement in France, in Germany, or in Italy, when it is not the same for the French companies willing to have access to public procurement in China. We are ready to discuss about that. We are ready to discuss also about the key question of the Chinese state aids to their companies, because we don't have the same in Europe and you don't have the same in the US. So let's talk about that. Let's really renew a frank and constructive dialogue between the US and the EU on the key questions related to China.
Well, speaking of the EU, if I can shift gears, what is your impression of the new Italian government?
There is a new Italian government, and I think that's really good news for the EU. So I really look forward to working with the new government and to working with my new counterpart in Italy. I think that we have a lot of job on the table, so I look forward to working with you.
Well, the new finance minister, Giovanni Tria, do you know him?
I don't know him, but I look forward to knowing him, and I hope that I will have the opportunity to meet my new Italian counterpart in a few days.
Do you think this brings the danger of Italy moving out of the eurozone higher or lower?
I cannot imagine Italy going out of the eurozone. I think that facing the huge challenges that we will have to face, I mean all the member states of the eurozone, we have to remain united. We have to take into account the concern of the Italian population. We have to understand the results of the vote in Italy. But the key question is to remain united. The 19 member states of the Eurozone have to reinforce the Eurozone so that the Eurozone will be more able to face either financial crisis or economic difficulties. That's the key challenge. And once again, we really count on the support of the Italian government for that.